hearing is called to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Has proper legal notice been given of this hearing?
The notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 10.833 acres located on Middle Urbana Road from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to PD Planned Development District was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on March 11, 2023.
I move that the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. We're to have a hearing. Has proper legal notice been given of the hearing?
We're ready for the staff report.
Okay, staff report.
Good evening, everyone. The applicant is proposing a multifamily residential development at the recently annexed parcel. The applicant is proposing a planned development district with 2 options of development and is requesting approval of both plans. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future character area as agricultural, as the character area of the entire corridor has changed in the recent years. Parcels fronting Middle Urbana Road between the Villa Road to Route 334 stretch. The surrounding developments within vicinity of the site has encouraged the developer to propose similar housing options. The applicant is proposing 64 units of condominiums in option A and 94 units of apartments in option B, as shown on slide. Middle Urbana Road is classified as 80-foot wide secondary arterial public right-of-way by the Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. Both options of development will have a boulevard access along Middle Urbana Road. Both options are proposed to have a 25-foot of buffer or setback on all sides, and applicant is planning on preserving existing trees to the greatest extent possible. Option B shows recreational uses to support the density of apartments. The proposed density on site is not to exceed by approximately 8 units per acre. Return reports from city staff state no objections and recommends approval of the applicant's request to rezone subject parcels from RS5 to Planned Development District. There is a note for the applicant. After receiving approvals from the City Commission, if the applicant or property owner makes substantial changes with an approved plan, they would have to amend the approved plan district. Staff had received phone calls from neighbors about details of the development. At the City Planning Board meeting, there were concerns from neighbors about stormwater drainage of the site, the nature of development, and the increase in traffic due to added density along Middle Urbana Road. The applicant's request was approved by the City Planning Board. Thank you.
Anything from commissioners?
Have the objections been addressed at this point?
There were further questions for which I suggested they attend the City Commission meeting so they can have their questions answered.
Because I would very much like to know what the objections are and also what the developer is planning to do to work with the residents to address.
The developer is here to present his case as well.
Name and address.
I'm Steve Weller, Chief Financial Officer of Mid-Ohio Development, developer.
Sean Murphy, Vice President Construction for Mid-Ohio Development.
Would you like to state your case on this?
Tell us what you wanted to say.
We're just, we've talked to, at the zoning meeting, we talked briefly with neighbors' concerns about the main concern sounded like was the stormwater and drainage and as we discussed, common misconception with development. There's a lot of stormwater involved, the retention basin and all that. That certainly helped with the overall drainage of the area. You're taking pervious area, you're adding infrastructure, and it will improve it. So that was one of the only concerns I heard, and we're open to establish a common ground and address any concerns that any neighbor have.
I think there was another concern I heard Woody say about traffic flow. Did you want to speak to that study or a little bit? Could you go to the mic, please, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Our market, empty nesters and retirees. So they don't travel at the same sort of busy time. So they don't really create a big impact on access from, the homes along there. I was just up there. I had no problem turning into the street just to the north, turning around and coming back out. It was 4 to 5.
I mean, I'm sure you've faced this with other developments. We heard this, that there was a concern when Kingsgate was being developed. These same concerns came up, and just thought it would be important for you to address what you just said about how the traffic flow is different than everybody leaving at once at 7:30 in the morning, going to a job. This is a different community that you're going after.
Commission, I would just add too, from a stormwater perspective, staff is aware of just some concerns or issues with drainage at the current site. And so those will have to be addressed as part of the development. Those would come when the developer submitted construction drawings. We would look at their stormwater plan and how they would address the runoff on the property.
And it's also my understanding that these are the type of developments that we are actually in dire need in our community. Is that right, Brian? And there's these type of developments that's 55 and up, I assume, right?
Yeah, and they're not age restricted. We do not age restrict them, but 80-90% of the residents
are attracted to these type of
correct,
developments.
Correct, because they're slab on grade. There's no step. It attracts that crowd.
Right. Thank you.
I wonder if there are any residents here who would like to make some comments. If you would, please come to one of the mics, state your name and your address. We'd like to hear from everyone.
My name is Vicki Adams. I live at 3450 Middle Urbana Road. I'm right in the middle of that property. I am really concerned about how this is going to affect everything. He says he attracts 55 and up. That doesn't mean they're all going to be 55 and up. And from what I heard, don't think that because they're 55 and up, they don't go anywhere. I'm 65 years old and I'm on the move all the time. So, I mean, they're not 90
You're
and
not
staying
going
home.
anywhere. We're suggesting
Wait,
they don't go
wait,
at
wait. Let
the
her
rush
finish.
hour.
Please don't interview.
But I do have a question that I can't seem to get answered. I keep being told no when I make phone calls down here at the city. I wanted to know if the annexation has already gone through.
Yes, the annexation has been approved.
Okay, so when they making changes to the land out there, is there permits they're supposed to have?
Yes, they will have to submit for building permits, which include site plans, et cetera, before they would start any construction activities.
This is what I'm looking at, and there's more today.
Yeah, the pictures that are presented, I'll hand those out to commissioners, show dirt that has been moved to the site. There are no restrictions to moving dirt onto adjacent properties, just
Okay.
like the current property owner could move dirt onto that property if they want, without any restrictions from us. They're not required to receive a permit. Now, if they started digging and putting utilities or pouring footers or foundations in, that requires a permit through the city of Springfield.
Okay, with that amount of dirt, and luckily this week, we're not predicted to get hardly any rain, if any. If this had been last week or the week before, imagine what would have been coming off of that onto me. And then the other two pictures where that wishing well is in my yard, that is where my well is. It might be 20 foot from my well to the empty house that's sitting on that property. That the roof fell in, everything's fallen in. It has asbestos shingles on the outside. I mean, I'm very concerned about my well and me being right there. And I don't have a deep well. My well's 25 foot. So it's not like I got city water where if any of that gets into, it's being filtered and done all this, that, and the other.
Yeah, as far as the house is concerned, that would be to the north of you. Again, the developer, if that house is still there, would be required to seek a demolition permit, and they would have to properly demolish and remove any hazardous material. So if there's asbestos and so forth, that will have to be handled and cared for, and that would be noted in the demolition permit.
Are they planning on taking that down? Because, I mean, you can go out there and condemn it. It's not safe.
Keep in mind, we don't own the parcel yet, so our hands are tied. We cannot do anything to that house. We imported dirt off of another job site that we have right now. I was in contact with the city of Springfield, talked to them about all that. Do not need permits to import it because we're not doing anything like Brian said. We have erosion control in place, and as far as the city's concerned, we're concerned, we have all appropriate measures in place. Now, as far as your well, if that's a concern of yours, and with it being 25 foot deep, legitimate concern, I would be happy to run public water service to your house, put you on at our cost.
Heard it here.
That may be something to think about. Because
would be
I'm,
something.
you know,
Yeah, no.
That's one way to work with them.
something happens to my well,
Understood.
it shouldn't be put on me,
Understood. Absolutely.
At all.
I agree. I agree.
you
That's
know.
kind.
And I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of amazed without even approval and actually owning the property yet and everything, that they would haul in all that dirt.
It probably would surprise me too, but I would ask for the same explanation that Brian gave you, is that they didn't need to have anything more than just, they could dump dirt on the property, and it didn't negatively affect what they're trying to do, and they weren't illegal in doing it.
I'm trying to keep everything safe.
No, it's
because
good. But you're going to get free city water from them if they
I
develop
have
it.
2 kids I'm raising, 9 and 11 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and with all that going on back there, I mean, those kids' safety is my concern too.
You just got one of the nicest offers I've seen right here publicly from a developer to make something right with the landowner. So commend you guys for saying that, and I would take heed to that and get with these guys after the meeting to talk with them if this goes
I'd like
through.
that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone
Yes.
else want to speak on this matter?
I wonder, Mr. Heck, if we could have one of the city staff members facilitate that discussion at the end of the meeting to
And that's
make
something we
sure it
can-
happens.
That's something we can put on the plans too, to make sure, Brian, as we get through all that.
But I think it's important that you meet tonight and talk with them to make sure you have your concerns identified so they're aware of it. And if they can address it immediately, great. If not, they can begin to plan. But I think it's very important we help facilitate those conversations.
Name of the rest, name and address for the record, please.
Richard Truman. I live at 3383 Middle Urbana Road. I am directly across from pretty much where the pond area is directly kind of staggered from my yard. I'm really concerned about runoff, of course, and also because disturbing the water underground, because my well's there too. And I'm kind of concerned about that too. I don't want it to destroy my well. Traffic is my concern. I know they said that it doesn't seem to be, but the issue is that it's not being patrolled. People run up and down that road 60, 70 miles an hour all the time. you hardly see anybody doing 35 like they're supposed to. And you put those older people in there and they pull out because the distance is not too far. They can't see over the next little hill that's down the road. As people are doing that, there's going to be a lot of dead little old people. And I am concerned about that. They're people. They're going to be my neighbors. I don't want them dead. So that's kind of a city or county thing or something, but it needs to be addressed soon before that happens, especially with all the trucks and stuff going in and out of there. Just a matter for someone runs up over a hill and runs into the back of one of these big dump trucks or something. So those things are important to me. And, you know, I just don't want anything to happen to my well or anything either. So I don't know what disturbing the ground will do. And I know there's aquifers down there or whatever that you tap into. And, you know, water can get ruined somehow. So I'm concerned about that also. So that's
Thank
my
you.
issues. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second?
been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrand?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
So this evening, we have a proclamation that will be accepted by Lauren and Diana Ware, and it reads as such. Whereas, I had it written down so I can make sure I pronounced it correctly. Sarcoidosis is a potentially debilitating and deadly rare multi-organ inflammatory disease estimated to affect 175,000 people in the United States with no known cause, cure, or reliable treatments to slow or halt the progression of chronic cases. And whereas the signs and symptoms of sarcoidosis widely varies depending on the person and organs affected and can include debilitating fatigue, shortness of breath, difficulties with balance and coordination, irregular heartbeat, visual problems, including blindness, pain affecting joints and muscles, weakness or numbness of limbs, skin rash and discoloration, mood disorders such as depression and anxiety, organ failure, and sleep difficulties. And whereas sarcoidosis can affect people of any age, race, or gender, but it is most common among adults between ages of 30 and 50, and 3 times higher in African Americans than in whites. There is no objective test or biomarker, although there are numerous diagnostic tests and ongoing clinical observation which continues to be required. Now, therefore, Mayor Warren Copeland of the City of Springfield, Ohio, and President of the City Commission do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Sarcoidosis Awareness Month in Springfield. And we urge our citizens to support those in our community who are living with this disease, along with their families, volunteers and researchers, caregivers and medical professionals who are working to improve the quality of life for those affected by this disease. Is Lauren and Diana? Thank you.
If you'd like to make a few comments, you're welcome to.
I just wanted to thank the commission proclamation.
Please speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You would
so
think
we
I
can-
would know
So
this
everybody can hear you.
You would think being a dispatcher, I would know to be in front of the microphone, or having been a dispatcher.
There you go.
I'd just like to thank the commission for issuing this proclamation and trying to bring awareness to this. We've been dealing with it for about 7 years now. He has the neurosarcoidosis, which was lesions on his brain and spinal column, and which has caused the mobility issues. But I just recently found out, I hope Chief Smith doesn't mind, he said he has sarcoidosis, and I didn't know that. But purple's the color for sarcoidosis, and Thursday is Sarcoidosis Awareness Day, where they ask everybody to wear purple. So once again, just thank you for issuing this and help bringing awareness to this disease.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing all us aware of it. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearings? Oh, yeah? So we're ready for the regular meeting? Okay. Please come call to order for the meeting of the city commission. Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Here.
Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our God, this is a week in which we have seen people who have tried to speak up for those who've been shot and have been punished for it. We hope we will never do that in Springfield. And we hope that we find ways to deal with the problems that people have with dealing with arms. Way too many people have guns that they don't need to have, and too often are using them. And that's true all over the country, including in Springfield. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Rue? Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Do we do first readings by title only?
Yes, sir.
Clerk will proceed.
All right, my laptop a little slow here.
Rob will sing us a tune really quickly while we wait.
Okay, I'm ready. Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 10.833 acres on Middle Urbana Road, Springfield, Ohio, from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residential District to the Middle Urbana Planned Development District, and adopting the regulations for the Middle Urbana Planned Development District, confirming and approving a development incentive agreement, non-residential development, with Gaia Tree 2 Drive-Through LLC, provide for sewer services of real property outside the city limits.
We'll not be voting on this evening. It'll be on our agenda next time we meet. Clerk will proceed.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.18 acre at 923 North Limestone Street, Springfield, Ohio, from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residential District to CO1 Commercial Office District.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Approving an amendment to the existing CC2A District Development Plan for 4.93 acres at the corner of St. Paris Pike and St. Paris Connector to modify the planned building layout.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I have a statement I'd like to read. This is regarding, I believe in the last time I spoke that I would not be supporting this rezoning. I'd like to read this. As a commissioner, I'm deeply concerned about the broken promises that have been made by the developer regarding the issues of the landscape buffer on St. Paris, the preservation of the former property that when they had control of it, of the Sayers property, the maintenance of their current properties, and the current broken promise that there is no shovel in the ground developing a hotel, as was promised 2 weeks ago and brought up by a few citizens who watched the commission meeting. The city has had to intervene in various ways, such as code enforcement orders, setting up violation mowing contracts, pulling performance bonds to advance construction work. It is disappointing to see the developer has not fulfilled their obligations in maintenance and good relations with the community. Additionally, I'm concerned about the issue of the secondary access behind R&R Tire. Construction work has yet to begun. This is again, the developers has been asked to do this. It's crucial that the work be completed on that development. It's necessary for the safety and well-being of our community. We must hold developers accountable for fulfilling their obligations to ensure that our community has access to safe and reliable infrastructure. As a commissioner, we must prioritize the best interests of our community and hold the developers accountable for responsibilities. By doing so, we can ensure the community continues to thrive and grow as we are seeing it. I believe it is crucial to hold these developers responsible as good community partners. However, in doing this, we need to consider the input of our staff and the recommendations that they make. The city staff has made it clear that they do not recommend moving forward with this developer's request, and I agree with this assessment. We must ensure that our decisions are based on solid information and evidence and that we prioritize the best interests of our community. It is not enough to simply accept the developer's plea or recommendation that we would move forward so they can clear a sale without a better reason or justification for this development. Lastly, we must consider the long-term economic benefit of the potential drawbacks of this development project. The proposed development could halt a hotel development, which would have a greater economic impact on our community. We must ensure that the decisions and benefits the entire community and the long-term goals of our community and the goals and objectives of our commission. That is a statement. I'll continue not to support this effort, but I think it's important that the citizens know that as this has nothing to do with the car wash that is being proposed in this area and who would like to put it there, it has everything to do with the broken promises of the developer. There's infrastructure that could be put there to make this more of an attractive property. There is no hurry, in my opinion, to put something on this plot of land when we could have a better opportunity in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I would like to move that item number 067-23 listed on the agenda for this evening be tabled until the following items have been met as conditions precedent. Number 1, the new berm landscaping plan approved in February by city administration is completed, or a new plan is submitted, approved by the city administration, and completed. Number 2, all litter is picked up on the properties in compliance with City of Springfield code. Properties belonging to the developer on the north and south side of St. Paris Pike Connector and continues to be code compliant. Number 3, the properties belonging to the developer are to be mowed and maintained in compliance with City of Springfield code on the north and south side of the St. Paris Pike Connector. Number 4, a performance bond signed on June 15, 2022 by the developer was posted relative to construction of a secondary access road behind R&R Tire. This work needs to commence on or before May 1st, 2023. Number 5, and my last condition. Work shall commence on the private access road shown on the amended plan approved on March 1, 2022 for parcel number 32000001000128. This road will be built per approved drawing submitted to the City of Springfield Service Department. And if I get a second for my motion, I would like to speak to this.
I really have a couple of questions before we make that motion. I just want to be able to hear from the developers and that if they're able to comply with those, because I do agree that we can't move forward unless those promises are kept, right? But if they can't do it, then we might as well table it, right? But I would really like to hear from them to see if they can live up to those things.
Name and address for the record.
My name is John Vansickle. My address is 7771 Concord Road, Delaware, Ohio. I am a member of Zuber Crossing LLC, which is the owner of these parcels. And I'm happy to address some of these issues and bring you up to speed of what's being done, when it's being done, and things along those lines. First of all, we are not a developer. John Vallejos owned this with a developer some time ago. He's passed away. We're just basically own the property and trying to get basically sell it and do the best job that we can. I have been involved personally with this property since 2019. But when I came on, yes, there were some issues with mowing. That has not been the case. We actually make hay on the property, do that at least twice a year. We actually have a private contractor mowing the ditches and things along those lines. I did talk to Dr. Estrop last week about, and that was a good point. Again, the trash and the litter, as things would happen in the development beside the Hobby Lobby, the Walmart. John and I personally spent our Saturday out there picking that. If you drive by it now, I think you'll see it's a lot better shape than it was, particularly the hillside. The hillside would catch up all that litter, and so we did do that, picked up about 20 bags of trash. One of the things that we think will help the community, obviously, is if we do complete our sale to the car wash, which we believe is an appropriate use for that parcel to the north. It is one of the end properties there. With respect to the landscaping, I do have, if you would like, landscaping plan that we had talked with Brian about, and basically getting that thing lined up and ready to go. One of the things we planted there before, actually twice before, the pines, the evergreens that are there now. The problem that we had, the first planting died because they didn't have water. The second one, we've got probably about 6 that need to be pulled out of there. But we went ahead with a redesign where we're going to be putting 11 crab apples and I think about 10 elm trees, and then replacing some of the ones of the pines with a Norway spruce. Now, the original plan called for a certain type of, I think it was a emerald sunshine elm. We talked with growers in the region. They just don't have those. We looked at basically a substitute, which is, I believe, on the second page, which is kind of another elm, grows about 35 feet tall, and it has red flowers and stuff there. We did run that by Brian earlier. We've got bids for basically someone to install a irrigation system. We're looking at getting a water tap in there and then having an irrigation system so these things actually grow. So, it's not that we haven't been ignoring things. We're just trying to address them in the proper manner. We're looking at probably undertaking this project at the last part of April, first part of May, as soon as the water is done and water tap. We have our engineer working on that issue right now.
I have
go ahead. Yes.
couple of questions and some observations.
Sure.
I visited the site today.
Yes.
There was still litter on the site.
And-
I admit you picked up some. What disturbed me was on the site where you're asking it to be developed into the car wash, there was nothing picked up there. It was just on where the berm is. So the site is still not litter free. It's got trash on it. Second thing is, I think clearly we've heard a lot of talk. And from my perspective, right now I don't even have a second for my motion, but from my perspective, it's time for you to show us some action. That in fact, you will improve this property and take care of it as the owner. Because now it's not being taken care of. And we need to see that you are willing to invest time, energy, and treasure in this. If you're going to ask us to invest in this particular endeavor, we need to see your investment. And all we have heard up to this point essentially is talk.
We understand.
So what I'm saying is, in this motion, and I'll give you a copy of it, is we need to see some definitive progress on that site, both on the north side of the St. Paris Pike Connector and on the south side. Because we need to see some action, no more talk. From my perspective, we need to see some action.
Well, I think it's worth saying, you stood right there 2 weeks ago with passion and energy said, there'll be a shovel on the ground in 2 weeks to build that hotel. There's not permits that have been pulled. Now, you said this. I had people that actually asked me about it after you said it, okay? You said this. So I think we're wasting our time with the table motion, because go ahead and do what you want to do with change the landscape and do all that, and then come back with the developer. If you're not a developer, as you've already said, sell it to a developer that actually wants to do good on that area instead of just wanting to sell it off. That's what I would recommend, because you've just clearly said you're not a developer. We need people to develop that area that will pay good attention to it and bring good economic impact to that area. Otherwise, for me, it's a triangle of grass. It does not need to have a building on it because it's been a triangle grass my entire life, and it doesn't affect the impact on Bechtel's interchange there. But if somebody wants to develop something nice that will bring an impact in our community, that's great. A beautiful car wash will not do that. A hotel with 95 rooms will bring people in there. And if that doesn't get developed because you put a beautiful car wash there, that's going to upset me. I will not vote for this.
Well, again, let me explain to you where the process is. At the time I made that statement, we had assurances from somebody that needed to sign off on an amendment to the REA that was necessary for us to close with hotel. It's still on, but again, they were out in California. I've been after them every day.
I'm sure.
To try to get that done. And we're still basically at that point that I need to have the sign off. I've got the amended plans. I've got the signatures from everybody else that's necessary to do that. But before we can get the shovel in the ground, we actually have to do the closing. And to do the closing, we have to meet certain preconditions in the contract. We are pursuing diligently as much as we can. Some of that stuff is out of our control. But what we are doing is we're trying to do as much as we physically possibly can in this, including trying to get somebody lined up to go into this, because we'd like to basically, once we get the hotel going in there and get the road commenced in there, is have this closing so they can be building at the same time.
Well, I would just guess, if I was looking at property to put a business, if I saw a road, I probably would have a picture of what my hotel would look like. And if you would put the proposed road in that you've asked to do in that area, people could probably see what it should develop into, but all they see is a hayfield. And there's no urgency on my end to give you an opportunity to sell this property because you haven't done what you said that you said you would do over a long period of time. I have 10 pages of different requests that you've made since this property has been in your all's hands of how the city has tried to work with you to get this developed. Change orders and zoning requests and things like that. They're all right here and they can be looked up easily. To me, you're not a good yes investment right now. So I'm just gonna, I mean, I'll stop saying, you get my point.
I do.
But-
And,
but-
and again, we hire professionals to do that for us.
Yeah.
You know, we hire people to come in with plans to bring interested parties to the table. And we have an engineer that's does some design work and some things along those lines. But for this to happen, we have to, one, get obviously the hotel closing
Right.
and then a lot of these things moving on. But this is an integral part of this, is basically getting this car wash lined up, ready to go with that. So like I said, if we can get the zoning approved and doing that, you know, we will do all this other stuff.
So on our end, our professionals who we hire, Brian Heck and his team of city staff that looks into these details and gives us an opinion that we can agree with or not,
Sure.
has said they don't recommend this. And there's just not enough good information from you and your team to say, I need to overturn their decision and what they're paid for with all their degrees to say, no, you're wrong, you're right.
Well, the planning, as
But,
I understand it, the planning commission voted in favor of this.
4-2.
Despite Brian's recommendation not to do that. And again, a lot of what I heard from the staff's recommendation is they saw this as being restaurants. Well, we live in a different day and age right now than
That's
we did.
your opinion.
But no, it is, I think, a fact is you go look and there's closed restaurants right on Bechtel.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and we've got basically our guy here, Brett Leslie, who does the marketing. He knows who is looking in this particular area that can address that particular subject.
So the last time this gentleman stood up here and scolded us on, we can hope for things, but we're just not going to get it. And that's all wonderful and fine, but I don't listen to that either. I think we have never been in a greater time in Springfield to see developers come in and they're interested in putting restaurants and quality retail in our area. They may not want to put it on your triangle, but they're interested in coming here and putting that in. So I just don't think, we're not begging anymore. I think for the last 30 years, there may have been an opportunity. Somebody wants to develop. There wasn't a whole lot of, hey, thanks, come to Springfield. It's just not that way anymore. So yes, it is a new day, but we don't have to be in a rush. Maybe some of us are, but we don't have to be in a rush to have you sell this. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not hurting anything sitting there. You just don't have a good enough plan. You haven't put the infrastructure in for me to vote for you.
I have an item on the table, a motion. I believe I'm still looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Need the motion again?
I will be happy to, and did you pass the pages down for all the commissioners? And I have one for you, sir. There you go. So I move that item number 067-23 on the agenda of the City Commission meeting of April 11th, 2023 be tabled until the following items have been met as conditions precedent. Number one, and it apparently now is a newer, at least a revised landscaping plan, approved in February by the city administration is completed, or a new plan is submitted, approved by the city administration, and completed. Number two, all litter is picked up on the properties in compliance with the City of Springfield Code belonging to the developer on the north and south side of St. Paris Pike Connector, and that these properties continue to be code compliant. Number three, the properties belonging to the developer are to be mowed and maintained in compliance with City of Springfield Code on both the north and south sides of the St. Paris Pike Connector. Number four, a performance bond signed on June 15th, 2022 by the developer was posted relative to construction of a secondary access behind R&R Tire. This work needs to commence on or before May 1, 2023. And number five, the last one, work shall commence on the private access road shown on the amended plan approved on March 1, 2022 for parcel number, and I'm not going to read the parcel number again. Jill, I'll give you a hard copy of this if you don't have it. This road will be built per approved drawings submitted to the City of Springfield Service Department. So this item on tonight's agenda, if my motion is approved, would table this matter until these conditions have been met. Once they're met, the item can come back before us for consideration.
So how long, once these items are addressed?
The motion
And then
on
who
the floor.
decides whether they're?
Just a minute, sir.
Sure.
There's a motion on the floor, and the mayor's not called for comment on the motion, and we either need to vote or we need.
Other commissioners want to speak?
Well, my answer is this. As soon as these items are met, my intent would be to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Once all five conditions have been met, when you notify us and the administration certifies that they have been met, my intent would be to put it on the next commission meeting for consideration.
Can I address one of those items? I don't believe we've had any problem with the mowing and maintenance of the property on there. We've, since I've been involved in 2019, we've hired a person to do that, and we bale hay on that twice a year.
And as you said, there have been problems on that property. I wasn't sure who was responsible for it, but if you have somebody who is meeting code now, you can check that one off your list. We want to make sure that the property is maintained according to the city code.
We have been doing that. the
Yeah,
last 5
and
years.
that's fine. Just continue. You don't need to worry about that one if you've arranged to have it mowed.
Have you got the road submitted for the rear end of the tire company? Has that been submitted?
We have the engineers drawn that out. Again, we have approached Walmart, who has to actually grant an easement over there. I guess our current contract with Brian is basically, we will commence doing that, and that's basically dropping in the culverts on there, and then just doing that before we pave over. We can't even do anything unless we got cooperation with Walmart, because they have to grant the easement. Hobby Lobby has to grant the easement. They actually just got back in contact with me on Friday. So at least I'm now talking with them on that. But these are all complications. You know, you may hear a lot of this, but we are taking efforts to do this, but it takes time to get to that point. And again, what we were looking at the rezoning is getting these people in line, be able to close once we have all this stuff done and commenced.
Again, the agreement on what he's referring to on the bond is to perform the work to your property line.
Yes.
You have not done any of that.
Well,
You have not done any of that, is that correct?
Brian, we've been waiting. The person that's going to do that is also the one that's going to be putting the road in on the island.
And that work can commence.
We were hoping to have this thing closed last December, January.
That work can commence. You can begin that work tomorrow. You have submitted plans to our engineering
Correct.
division for review. They've been reviewed. You can start that work. You could turn your contractor loose. The concern is you have said that continually, time after time again, maybe not you yourself personally, but others involved in this, and the work is still never started.
What I want to do with my motion, if it is approved by my colleague, is provide an incentive for you to get these things done. There is nothing here that you can't do that I'm aware of. There is nothing on this list that cannot be done. Mr. Heck just mentioned you start the work on that road on your property. That's all we're asking. Do it. That's what I'm trying to say to you. This is an incentive to move forward as quickly as you can so that you can come back to this commission and say, I met your condition. And at that point, we'll give your request consideration.
Is there an amount of time that we would be, so just whenever you guys finish? Do you feel like that's an equitable
We're
request?
looking to, like I said, as soon as we get the one signature, we're ready to close with hotel and get that commenced. Once we have that closing, we have the funds to commence all that. Obviously we can get, go ahead.
I think what we're saying is we're going to postpone our decision until you're ready to solve the problem. Okay?
That's what I'm hearing.
Everything he's proposing is not going to stop the hotel.
Oh.
That's approved.
That was a different matter. It's
That is
not on the
approved
list.
from a zoning standpoint. No building permits have been submitted yet for a hotel.
Get a building permit.
Yeah,
But that's not going to stop that.
no.
Again, do you find that to be an equitable agreement that you would be willing to do? Because otherwise, then I do agree with the other commissioners. So,
Like I said, I think, like I say, as far as mowing and thing, I think we've been in compliance.
correct.
I
on
would
that
object.
one,
I would
right?
object to obviously that because
Correct.
we've been doing what everybody's
Correct.
asked.
But outside of those, the
outside
other
these
four
things,
steps.
they can be, certainly be accomplished.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are you ready to vote on the motion?
Yes.
And this is the motion to table with the conditions. Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
No.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody remember where we are?
Yep, next,
We're on the third
next
reading
ordinance.
on number
Ready
two.
to vacate an
Second
alley.
readings.
I'm recording the votes, so
There's trying to find out.
vacating the first alley east of South Yellow Spring Street from Fair Street South to the first east-west intersecting alley.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to accept a 2023 Energized Community Grant through the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, in an amount up to $67,205 to be used for implementation of energy savings or energy infrastructure measures, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement for the acceptance of said grant, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to do all things necessary for the acceptance of the grant and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the lodging tax revenues agreement with the Greater Springfield Area Convention and Visitors Bureau Incorporated.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an employment incentive agreement with La Corte Dolce LLC to incentivize expansion and renovation of a food retail establishment located at 3640 North Fountain Avenue to create employment and new investment in the city. Authorizing the city manager, finance director, and law director to do all things necessary to implement the said incentive agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an employment incentive agreement with Preston Company LLC to incentivize the acquisition and operation of a food retail establishment located at 101 South Fountain Avenue to create employment and new investment in the city. Authorizing the city manager, finance director, and law director to do all things necessary to implement the said employment incentive agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an LPA Federal Local LET Project Agreement number 38897 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation. Provide the city with eligible costs of up to a maximum sum of $918,000 for the CLA Decorative Lights Project, PID number 118629, authorizing an expenditure of up to $584,500 to be used as matching funds in connection with the agreement to be entered into with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things they deem necessary to implement said agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, I do. We have several projects here, Mr. Heck, that are all identified similarly. I'm looking at item 094-23, 095-23, 096-23, 097-23, and 098-23. Can you give us an overview and some information about all of these projects? What's going on?
Yeah, so specifically, these agreements are LPA, federal local let project agreements, and what these do is we go out and we seek to leverage additional state and federal funds back into our community, because again, those are our tax dollars too, and we want to leverage those back into the community to accomplish projects on the federal aid system. And so the variety of projects you see range from roadways to streetlights to a bike hub, and so the item that's specifically before us is specific to the decorative streetlights that are on South Fountain from the railroad tracks up to Pleasant Street, and on Limestone from the railroad tracks to Pleasant Street. The lights in that area are obsolete equipment, and so we will be replacing those with LEDs. This project will not commence till 2026 to 2027. And that's what you'll find is the trend. We plan long before and way ahead in bringing these funds back to our community. And so you'll see the dates of these projects are off into the future. We have two different paving projects that you'll see in here for miscellaneous roadways. The first one that would commence is East Main Street from Spring to Greenmount, and Selma from Spring to the Corp line. That will be a shave and pave for those projects, and those would occur after July of 2026. The other paving project that's associated here would be for July of 2025. You would have Bechtel from the railroad tracks to 41, and you would have Villa Road, Durr Road to Middle Urbana. I also mentioned the Bike Hub project. The Bike Hub would be in a bike hub installed adjacent to the Heritage Center. So we've been working with Roger and the county, even though the Historical Society is taking ownership of the Heritage Center. We worked with them in advance to place this on the property adjacent to the bike trail. This would include a bike stop, restroom facilities, and kiosks. This is set for calendar year 2027. And then the last project, which actually got a lot of traction in the paper and on Facebook, was installing sidewalks along Bechtel Avenue on both sides. And that's on Bechtel from Hillcrest all the way down to Walmart, again on both sides of the road. We will also, a companion project that the city will take on because it's not on the federal aid system, is installing sidewalk along Hillcrest just past KFC, which would join up with the existing sidewalk where it ends. Again, to make Bechtel Avenue more pedestrian friendly. There are a lot more people that actually traverse that roadway by walking and taking their bikes. So trying to make it a little bit safer along Bechtel. And again, that'll happen after 2026 as well.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Yes. Claudia Fett, 806 South Fountain Avenue. I am representing the South Fountain Historic District. And according to the April 1st newspaper, it said project will include replacement of obsolete decorative street lighting on South Fountain and South Limestone streets, extending from the railroad track to Pleasant Street. We request and trust that those decorative streetlights will also be historic looking in nature?
We will work as closely as possible with Ohio Edison on that fact. We actually met with them on a different project the other day, and they're very much limiting our choices, but we will try to take the character of the area into account when we're selecting that fixture.
Thank you. And if you need any support, Brian, I have many neighbors who will come and support you and in this idea. Thank you. And because you mentioned all of them, may I also speak to another of these, or do you want me to wait? Because you just spoke about each of. You want me to wait, Rob?
I'm just suggesting that we would wait till we actually bring it up for a vote.
That's
what Dave
fine.
did was did a job of explaining what all the LPAs
Yes.
are.
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an LPA Federal Local LET Project Agreement Number 38900 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation to provide the city with eligible costs of up to a maximum sum of $2,264,524 for the CLA Springfield Miscellaneous Resurfacing Fiscal Year 27 project, PID number 118647, authorizing an expenditure of up to $928,775 to be used as matching funds in connection with the agreement to be entered into with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things they deem necessary to implement said agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an LPA Federal Local LET Project Agreement Number 38899 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation to provide the city with eligible costs of up to a maximum sum of $1,580,000 for the CLA Bechtel Avenue Sidewalk Project, PID number 118643, authorizing an expenditure of up to $395,000 to be used as matching funds in connection with the agreement to be entered into with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things they deem necessary to implement said agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an LPA Federal Local LET Project Agreement Number 38901 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation to provide the city with eligible costs of up to a maximum sum of $872,000 for the CLA Bike Hub Project, PID number 118826, authorizing an expenditure up to $218,000 to be used as matching funds in connection with the agreement to be entered into with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things they deem necessary to implement said agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience?
Yes. Claudia Fett, 806 South Fountain Avenue. I would just like to say that as a member of the Springfield Bike Advisory Board and as the past president of Bike Greater Springfield, I am thrilled. And I will make sure that the bicycling organizations in our county know about this, spread the word for this, so that we bring in tourists and bicyclists into our area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an LPA Federal Local LET Project Agreement Number 38898 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation to provide the city with eligible costs of up to a maximum sum of $1,704,524 for the CLA Springfield Miscellaneous Resurfacing Fiscal Year 26 project, PID number 118635, authorizing an expenditure up to $605,792 to be used as matching funds in connection with the agreement to be entered into with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things they deem necessary to implement said agreement.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the tuck pointing project at the wastewater treatment plant for McDaniels Construction Corporation Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $211,123.71 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for the purchase of 2 stainless steel dump bodies, including bed covers and road temperature sensors from K.E. Rose Company for an amount not to exceed $237,990.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the acceptance of various donations in support of Culture Fest 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions, comments from the commission?
We are grateful for the donation.
Amen.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming in purchases and obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefore and declaring it an emergency therein.
So
To
moved.
adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Amending ordinance number 23-8 to revise the transfer of monies authorized and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city's continued participation in the Ohio Municipal Joint Self-Insurance Pool for the period of April 1, 2023 through March 31, 2026. Authorizing payment to the Ohio Municipal Joint Self-Insurance Pool in an amount not to exceed $1,845,000 in premiums for law enforcement liability, EMS liability, public officials, general liability, automobile, property and inland marine, excess liability, surplus, and equipment breakdown through the premium period, confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from April 1, 2023 to the passage of this ordinance and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
Been moved and seconded. Anyone in the audience?
Brian, is this the fund that we use to pay the healthcare, the self-insured part, or is this just the liability portion of our safety portion?
This is just our general commercial insurance coverage for property,
Right.
vehicles, and so forth. So nothing to do with the health insurance.
Anything else from commissioners? Anyone in the audience that speak to this? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency. Oh, did I already do that one?
0922, 09122 is where we're at.
Sorry about that. Authorized, try this. Confirming and approving an amendment to the agreement with Marker Incorporated for preliminary and pre-construction services for the new fire station to be located on South Limestone Street, to increase the agreement in an amount not to exceed $3,210 for a total amount not to exceed $27,690, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I
Yes.
was wondering, Mr. Heck, if at our next meeting, perhaps in the work session, we can get an update on and some pictures of the new fire station.
Yes, Commissioners. This item specific to the South Limestone Station. We've also made great progress on the other three that we will be constructing. So certainly we can do a short work session and just present some of those drawings.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Anybody else from the commission? Anyone in the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing participation in the ODOT winter contract for road salt and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
I really hate to vote yes on this, but I see the need already. I vote yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 5 to the contract between the city and Blue Scope Construction for the installation of a sludge storage facility at the wastewater treatment plant, to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $37,314 for a total amount not to exceed $3,317,225.71, and to extend the contract completion date to March 9, 2023, pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code, and authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 5 and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was wondering if Chris could again explain to us how this is going to save the city considerable amount of money, because we're talking about over $3 million expenditure here. So I think it's important to understand that in making this expenditure, we're going to save the city some money over.
Correct, Commissioner. So it is getting harder and harder to find favorable weather conditions to properly spread sludge on farm fields. The ground can't be frozen, the ground can't be too wet. So we have to be able to store it, and we have to be able to store it in a dry place because we pay to dispose of it by the wet ton. So in doing this, this will allow us to store a lot more sludge and not have to worry about taking it to a landfill. Right now, the cost difference between spreading it on a field or taking it to a landfill is 372% different. So we want to stay on the bottom end of that. We don't want to go up 372%.
Amen.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes?
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the contract with Southern Ionics Incorporated for the purchase of liquid sodium bisulfite for use by the city's wastewater treatment plant for an amount not to exceed $49,200, confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from March 31, 2023 to the passage of this ordinance and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes?
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the Shelley Company for the 2023 PI paving project for an amount not to exceed $1,762,060.33 and declaring it an emergency therein.
moved.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission, from the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Buckeye Aquatics LLC for the Snyder Park Parade Ground repair for an amount not to exceed $86,764 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah, Brian, could you speak to the collaborative effort and how this is being funded, not just by the city?
Yes, Commission. So, as you know, the splash zone was originally put in from a generous donation from the Quinlan Foundation as well as from Speedway, Splash Ground, Splash Pad.
Pickleball.
Splash Pad in Snyder Park. And there's some changes that need to be made to the pump system and so forth that will help make it more efficient, less hands that have to touch it to make sure that it keeps working. And so the Partners for the Parks have committed up to $50,000 of the project. Obviously, you see the project may go up towards $86,000, so they would cover the $50,000, and then the city would pay the remainder out of the PI fund for NTPRD.
I know when it's working well, my 6-year-old loves it, so.
This should help
Working well.
give it a much longer life and easier use for our employees to make it work and for the public that's using it.
When Crystal and I are having our pickleball tournament down there at Snyder Park, some of the kids can come over and play on the splash pad.
Absolutely.
I can report they were starting to put the lines down today,
Excellent.
so
We are there.
this will be soon.
I'm warming up. The
Good.
knee is braced.
Okay. Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
On the title of the next ordinance. Sorry.
See 2 new items on the agenda, Jill?
Yeah, there's two
Okay.
new items. This is the first one. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a subrecipient funding agreement with Homeful to provide funding for the operations of a non-congregate and emergency housing facility at 325 West Columbia Street, Springfield, Ohio, in an amount not to exceed $1,343,380 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was wondering, Brian, if you might go into greater detail about what we're doing here and how we arrived at this point.
Yes, Commission. So this is specifically dealing with the Executive Inn, the former Executive Inn that the city purchased. And as we look to return that and put it to use as non-congregate shelter, staff worked to develop a plan, a strategy with a provider that had the necessary capacity to move forward or advance with the Executive Inn in non-congregate shelter format. And so a partner that was identified from some partners at the state was Homeful. Homeful's base operation is in Dayton, Ohio, but they do have and operate facilities and programs throughout the state of Ohio. And so we identified this partner. We began working with them. We've done several walkthroughs and so forth and have come to this funding agreement to put in place that is before you tonight that would allow for the operation of the Executive Inn as non-congregate shelter for a period of 1 year from the agreement being approved and signed. And so we feel confident, again, as we continue to address the homelessness issues in our community and add capacity and expand the infrastructure that is necessary for dealing with the crisis before us. We felt Homeful was that right provider to come in and lend that support, that aid, that increased capacity that our community definitely needs.
If I could ask and follow up, translate non-congregate? That sounds like a $20 legal term. No pun intended, Jill.
Yeah,
But
so,
tell us what that means, because I think it will help people understand the challenge.
yeah, congregate sheltering. So, congregate sheltering is when you're grouping individuals and families in one setting. And that's what we
It's
traditionally
like a big dorm room. with
Yeah, that's what we think
several-
about when we traditionally think about emergency sheltering and so forth, is it's one larger facility, one open space for people, potentially cots, depending, different
Yeah.
things. Non-congregate sheltering provides opportunity for individual rooms. And why this is so important as we look to address the homelessness issue in our community is the number of families that have been displaced over the last several years, specifically as a unforeseen circumstance of COVID. We've seen a lot more families, and so the congregate sheltering is not as conducive for those families to work, to thrive, to grow, to come out of the unfortunate circumstance that they're in. And so this non-congregate sheltering provides that safer venue for those families, those children that have been displaced and are homeless.
So the issue is really this change from congregate to non-congregate is really a function of what we've experienced with COVID and the impact of COVID on our community.
In large part, again, homelessness has spiked across the country. It's not just in Springfield, Ohio. But again, what we've seen is a larger proportion of families and children that have been displaced from their homes. More traditionally, it was, single men, single women. And so, we were set up to serve that with two different congregate shelter settings. Now that we're seeing more families facing homelessness and being displaced, the non-congregate living is definitely critical for the success and for the capacity and infrastructure that we need as a community.
Because the numbers have grown significantly.
Yes, the numbers
So
have grown.
This shelter will not replace the two shelters that are operating now, being operated by Shelter Inc. This will be in addition to, because we need that increased capacity to address the issue in our community.
Yes, Commission, that was never the intent of purchasing the two hotels to replace the current congregate shelter system that exists. Again, the intent was to increase capacity, to increase the necessary infrastructure that we need as a community to address this issue.
So after this 1 year of operating the executive inn, we will begin looking to moving people into a remodeled or substantially changed villager inn over time, and that will become the non-congregate place as the executive is eventually, or at some point, phased out of the.
Yeah, and again, when we purchased the two hotels, the Executive Inn was definitely a more short-term play as we address the issue. The Villager that was purchased, it's on the west end of our community. There is significant rehabilitation, revitalization of that facility. We're working right now on a request for proposals that would go out and try to find a developer to come in and, an expert come in and tell us, is the existing facility what's necessary? Do we need to look at maybe a new permanent supportive housing project? We're going to look at different opportunities there at the Villager, and that will help again as we continue to address and increase the infrastructure and capacity.
Is Homeful ready to come in and get this operating as soon as possible?
There are things that need to happen at the executive. So this agreement, the funding has capital components to it as well as operation. There's some capital that needs to go, but they are, Homeful is very aware of the situation, and they are willing and ready to come in and bring as much online as they possibly can at the onset while they work to rehab and remodel certain sections of the building.
Thank you very much for all that
Brian, do you have a
information.
date certain that they're going to start?
Not an exact date certain. Pending this approval, we'll start to work with their staff, their team, to develop what that date is for you.
And this was an emergency ordinance tonight.
Yes, so that we
it
can
takes
start,
effect immediately.
yes, so we can start advancing it forward.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
And the last item that was added to the agenda, consenting to the reappointment of Stephen L. Doughty to the Board of the Springfield Metropolitan Housing Authority.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. That concludes our agenda. I want to particularly express my appreciation to the clerk for having to go through all this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything from commissioners?
We received some information from NOPEC, and I was wondering if Katie might remind everyone what NOPEC is and what's going on. We had an action item on the agenda tonight. So Katie, I was wondering if you could give us a quick review of NOPEC.
Yes, Commissioner. So NOPEC is the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council. They're the largest governmental retail energy aggregator in the state. They serve over 200 communities in 14 counties. They are a nonprofit group that buys electricity in bulk to help lower resident utility bills. Commission approved joining NOPEC in July of 2018, so Springfield is a member community. Last fall, as you'll recall, NOPEC returned customer accounts to Ohio Edison for aggregation due to a dramatic increase in the market price of electricity. Customers were notified of that via mail. NOPEC expects those prices to stabilize and will resume their energy aggregation program in June. If residents have any questions, NOPEC has a customer care center number to reach out. That number is 855-667-3201.
Thank you.
Anything else from commissioners?
Just want to mention, that was quite a lengthy public hearing we had tonight, never a second reading. I just want to make it clear that I am very supportive of the developer. I want them to be successful in what they're doing. It's been a long haul out on Bechtel, as we all know. And it's always easier to run someone off than to make someone cooperate and make someone do what they're supposed to do, especially when that developer is not in Springfield. That's not an excuse for some of the things that I heard tonight with regard to the road that he could have already had to the property line, for the trash that could have always been kept up. There's no excuse for that not to have happened. Having said that, I think that we put him on the right direction this evening, and he knows where they stand now. So again, I appreciate the commission taking.
Anything else from commissioners? Anyone in the audience want to speak to us? I have a card from Glenda Haley. You give us your name and address for the record. And I must tell everyone who wants to speak, there's a 3-minute limit on how long he speaks. Name and address for the
Glenda
record.
Bailey, 732 Mound Street.
Thank you.
So I'm here today about Kramer Mill. 3 days ago, well, for the last 3 weeks, people have been dumping debris, garbage, and animals at Kramer Mill. So me and my neighbors have had our eye on it for the last few weeks. 3 days ago, I caught someone trying to dump debris. They actually walked up to the metal barrier across the driveway and unhooked it. And they were going to dump a whole trailer full of debris until I pulled up and took a picture of them. And then they got back in their car and left. I called the police and asked to make a police report. And I found out that Springfield has no one that deals with illegal dumping, that is left up to the county, which I find ironic considering Mr. Estrup, you're so concerned about garbage and litter. Have you ever driven down Delta Road?
Actually, I serve on the Solid Waste Policy Council. We have a contract with the county to provide those services. They have officers dedicated
There are two
to that,
officers,
to that
and
alone.
they work
But I will
first
be
shift,
happy-
5 days a week.
One at a time, please.
I will be happy to give you their numbers.
I have their numbers.
Okay.
This is not why
That's
I'm
who the
here.
reporter-
Why I'm here is this
One
is
at a time, please.
this is a city problem, and it's a problem that you commissioners should be able to deal with. You shouldn't have to go to the county and expect them to pick up dumps all over the county. They're stretched thin. So I'm appalled that that I can't call my local police department and get someone to come out and take a report when I have pictures of the people that are doing the dumping. All right. So, this litter, monologue that I heard from you just seems to me to be quite ironic when there's dumps all over the city that you guys want to ignore. And you can't tell me there's not enough extra money in your budget to have one person that deals with that. And this is all over the city.
I just want you to know, as another commissioner, trash is a huge problem in the city, within the city boundaries. I couldn't agree.
More in the city than the county.
I
Let him
couldn't-
finish,
I'm-
okay?
No, I'm really agreeing with you, and it's a problem. As far as our law enforcement, we are 10 or 15 down, 17 down in safety forces. So the contract is an effort with the county who has dedicated officers to help
I
us.
understand all that.
So, and I don't like seeing trash mounds. I have a business that's in the area, and I can walk 2 blocks and see mounds of trash that need to be dealt with. And it is hard to find it to be dealt with. It's very difficult. And I've said this before, when it comes to people breaking the law or making dumb decisions, there's not enough laws that can stop stupid. And it is dumb to throw trash in other people's property. It's illegal. And also like waterways that we see all the time. I agree with you.
And I want to bring up another thing. Kramer Mill is right next to the railroad tracks, and with all the train derailments, it would be very easy for someone to just dump right on the tracks, because that's where they're going.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm bringing this up so
Yeah,
you're
no, I appreciate
aware
it. I
of
get
what's
it.
happening at Kramer Mill.
If I'm
I went by there before I came over here tonight, and there's a fire burning over there. Someone's got a fire going.
I will be happy to approach Clark County and see if they are willing to relinquish that service to the city of Springfield within the city. Because right now, that is a service the county provides. And they receive revenue for it.
Right, and after
So I will
speaking,
be
Just let him
happy,
finish.
I will be happy to approach them and see if they are willing to give us a portion of the revenue, and we will be responsible. I will do that at the next county commission meeting to see if the county is willing to entertain that idea.
okay, but let me make it clear, you're not willing to provide any extra funds for that. Is that right?
Well,
Is that
I
correct?
want to know how much the county is getting, and if most of the trash is in Springfield, then we should get, because they get revenue from dump fees and everything else, I want to see how much money they're getting in this issue. So I will ask them to forego the revenue from the city, and in turn, we will use the revenue to see if we can employ someone as you've suggested. I will approach the county to do that.
Okay.
I can't make them do it.
I'm letting you know now, though, that the 2 people that they have covers the entire county. There are not enough people. You need an extra person for the city of Springfield.
You were
Excuse me.
supposed to have 3 minutes, and you've had about 5 now, so let's.
So I'll close it out real quick.
Just a minute.
I just wanted to say that there are different organizations, and I participate in them, and I know this isn't quite the answer that you're looking for, but there are several agencies throughout the county that do cleanup on Saturday mornings when spring hits, and I'd be more than welcome if you could I think we have your email address. I will send you out that information because I go out and pick up trash. I know that Dr. Julius Bailey also wanted to start a Brooms on the Block program, so I can also put you in contact with him as well, so that we can. I know you want someone from the city to be employed to do that, but there are ways that we can also impact that as individuals. So I can get you that information.
Thank you. As of the moment that I drove over here, this person that dumped just yesterday dumped it all over the sidewalk, and it's halfway out into York Street. So that should be a city issue. If it's in the street, beds and mattresses and all of that, it should definitely be a city issue. Just one other thing I wanted to talk about was the dumping of animals. Right now, the Humane Society has 215 dogs. They don't pick up cats, but in my neighborhood alone, I work for PETA as a rescue volunteer. There's at least 20 to 30 stray cats that I know of, and there's more. That's just in my small sector. My neighbor picked up a stray cat because, if you're an animal lover, you're not going to let an animal suffer. She picked up a stray cat, and now she has 5 kittens in her son's closet. So that's another thing, excuse me. That's another thing that's a city problem.
Please finish.
Because
you were given 3 minutes and you've had about 5.
Oh, I know, and I don't come here all the time.
Well,
I wanted to get everything in while I'm
We
here.
do have to follow an order. That's all the mayor's asking you to do is follow an order, okay?
Finish up,
Right.
please.
Thank you.
So, and one other thing, what happened to the scooters downtown?
They're gone.
Why?
They weren't safe. People got hurt.
Oh, so that was a bad idea.
Yes.
Yep. Anyone else?
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time. Appreciate it.
So you want to adjourn?
If you want.
Move
the
to
mayor.
adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?